Hello, I'm Gabe Curtis, the creator of the G-Films Back to the Future series. Released Back to the Future 4 back in May 2019 as a fan-made movie that added on to the original trilogy. The only difference was I took different characters and a completely different storyline, but I had the main idea of the original Back to the Future with the characters in my series make it a reality. Now I'm very blessed to announce, as I'm recording this, my very first movie, Back to the Future 4, has reached 530,000 views. It absolutely blew up on YouTube, and I'm so thankful for all that support. 500,000 people at least have saw my movie, which I'm so blessed. But there's also some negative sides to that as well as some positive sides. The positive side, of course, is all the support I'm getting and new people that are watching my content. But the negative side to that is I got a lot of poor feedback. I completely understand why, though. It just wasn't much good quality. And that's why I promised to make a sequel that had better quality, better graphics, better acting, a better storyline overall. And I made that happen. I released Back to the Future 5 just a little bit over a month ago as I'm recording this in August 2020. And this video will basically be explaining the behind-the-scenes look, an exclusive take on what it was like behind the scenes filming this specific movie. And before you watch this, if you haven't already, be sure to watch my Back to the Future 4 behind-the-scenes documentary, link in the iCard right there to check that out. And obviously, if you haven't watched Back to the Future 5 itself, there'll be a lot of spoilers in this movie, so be sure to watch that. If you haven't already, the link will also be in the iCard right there. And before I get to my behind-the-scenes look, I do want to mention that this is one of my merchandise that I put out a few months ago in celebration of hitting 1K back in March. This is specifically my Back to the Future 5 merch. You can see I have my logo here, myself looking at my other self from a different timeline, fire trails. I obviously just time traveled. And 11,000 RPM, which is my way of time traveling. It's Back to the Future's equivalent to 88 miles an hour. And if you look on the back, it has all the cast members that were in the movie. So if you want to cop that, be sure to click the link in the description box below. It'll be the first link you see, along with there's a lot more merch on the site as well. teespring.com/stores/Gabe Curtis. Alright, so it took me about a year to film Back to the Future 5, and as you know, I targeted 6 months. But it was because of COVID-19, which I'll get a lot more into detail later. But it ended up taking a year from August 2019 to August 2020 to film the movie. And this will be going completely in-depth on every step I took to get there. So, I released Back to the Future 4 on May 10th, 2019. A few weeks later, I was out to dinner with my family at a McMenamins in Corvallis, Oregon. And my mom proposed this idea to me of making a sequel. And my first reaction was like, no, I'm not going to make a sequel. I'm burned out already, and I'm just not really into it. But then she introduced this really good idea, which was the actual plot for the movie. And my mom's a very good writer. She has a lot of experience, so she helped me so much throughout this movie. So big props to her. It wouldn't be this good if it wasn't for her. And she wasn't part of the writing making last movie, and that's no offense to her. I just didn't bother to include her because it was just kind of my own project. I just had a couple cameos of her, like a 30-second clip as an old lady at the door in the future, if you remember that scene, and as the news reporter, which we completely developed way more in this movie, and it took one of the main parts in this movie. But I never really involved her at all. But I really wanted to make this a lot better, and she did a great job helping me out and really coming to great decisions about this movie. But anyway, she proposed this idea, which is the plot of Back to the Future 5, and she was just saying, well, how about if Parker, which I played in the movie, turns out their parents aren't dead like they thought in Back to the Future 4. What if Parker finds out that his parents are alive and well, and his grandma, which is actually his mom's old professor, took care of him and raised him and adopted him after Parker's mom couldn't handle him anymore because of his dad obsessed with time travel. And wow, and then it hit me. I'm like, wow, that is such a good story, Mom. Thank you. And then that got me really hyped up. I'm like, okay, let's do this. And that's when it was born. That exact day is when it was born, on May 24th, 2019. You don't know how many times that I've threatened to give up on this movie, and I lost motivation a lot, and I was just going through a lot of mental health issues, and to get more motivation into it, which is to look at all my supporters who wanted to see this movie, and myself. I loved acting, I love filming, and even though, yes, at times I lost motivation, by looking what's inside my personal life, I realized what's really important, and that was to produce this. But I will say, a few days later, on May 27th, I announced on social media that I would release it sometime 2020. And all of a sudden on June 1st, I was like, oh, late 2019, early 2020. I should have not gone that far. I mean, I was better at predicting the release than I was for the last movie. Back to the Future 4, I was like, oh, it's going to come out in a couple weeks, even though I just started filming. It was just, that was all my fault. And honestly, this time it wasn't, because of COVID, and there's other reasons as well that I'll get into later. But yeah, that was my target originally, and by July 16th is when I ordered my main equipment, my microphones and my gimbal, which gimbal is a way to stabilize your phone. It's like, I guess, a tripod in a way, but it's not. It doesn't sit. It's a way that somebody can move around, but it stays stable. And I really wanted that, as I hated how I had my tripod in one spot pretty much the entire part of Back to the Future 4. And times when it wasn't, it was just handheld my phone, and it was just really shaky and bad quality. And plus the microphone that I used was just my phone. So I ordered actual wireless microphones that I clipped inside my shirt. I remember this. And all the actors clipped inside their shirts, and it was a hassle. I mean, it was better quality, but it was a hassle because there was little covers that you put on, and they would always come off. It was just so awkward, putting it up your shirt and trying to hide your mic pack. And there's a lot of memories on that, definitely. But by August 2nd is actually when I started to make some props. It was the day before I actually started filming, so I was, I'm always last minute, and that seems to be me. But I got some assignments from past years at my actual school, and everything was the same. I kept the grade the same. Everything was the same. The only difference that I made was turn Gabe Curtis at the name in the top right corner to Parker Wright. So when you see me going through my assignments, in the first 5 minutes of the movie, those grades in the specific assignments are 100% not scripted. Those actually are what I had and got as a grade in those specific assignments back in middle school. And yes, they were bad, but again, that was because of my mental health, and I was in a really bad place. And God has really given me the gift to focus on what's most important. August 3rd, 2019 was day one of filming Back to the Future 5 with my grandma, Gail Johnson, who played Sarah, or thought to be my grandma in the movie.
Okay, Parker, that's enough of the video games. Let's get your chores done.
Why?
Because you've got one day to get your chores done.
But I already brought the clothes upstairs. Most of that was filmed on that day. By August 9th, it was actually the first round of the fight scene with my friend Victor, who played the villain's assistant in the movie. Oh! Put up on screen what I mean by the first round of the fight scene, and that was the villain coming up behind me, threatens to shoot me. I punch him right in the face, he goes down, and then I go away on my dirt bike, but then he shoots. The bullet comes out and goes into the tire, and I stop. But yeah, that was definitely a day to remember. We didn't even get to the legit fighting other than me punching him in the face, because they were on very limited time. My friend Victor, if you didn't know, he moved from the Portland area to the Seattle area a couple years ago. But I did promise him that he would be in this movie, so we just had to coordinate when he would come down to film. But on August 16th, we finished the rest of my grandma's scenes in terms of in the first 10 minutes.
Explain this.
Let me see. Ooh. Oh, okay. All right. Now's the time.
Oh, hi, Grandma.
What are you doing back here so soon?
Well, Vern didn't have much time to hang out.
Oh, that doesn't make sense. Vern just called here a while ago, and he was wondering where you were, if you wanted to hang out.
On August 31st, we rebuilt my Time Pack because it was still destroyed from Back to the Future 4. The only thing we added to it was like a glass acrylic sheet over the top of it so it kind of stayed in and looked more sleek, but other than that, we didn't replace any of the materials. On September 1st was the very intro scene before it even got to present day. I'm trying to cajole you outside.
Slam the door in his head.
The villain, played by Ernest Mayer, trying to hunt down my father or Rodney in the movie, and he killed him. And also when I discovered the dead body on the grass. And by September 21st is when we tried to film the confronting scene between Rodney and Parker after Parker found out that Rodney is actually his father. But it turned out the audio cut out. Like our mic packs were not working correctly. I don't know exactly what happened, but I think it had something to do with Bluetooth or some power issue, but kind of something that's ironic. The next time we tried to film that scene on October 5th, the audio cut out. But this time it was actually my fault. I think I fixed the Bluetooth and power issue, whatever it was. But this time when I was fixing it and plugging things back in, I plugged the power source, that plugs into our mic pack and then receives out to a Bluetooth receiver. I plugged that into the headphone jack rather than the audio output jack, which basically is useful if people listening through headphones into the mic pack so they can hear what you're saying. But in this case we weren't, so that made it so the audio was completely cut out. So that time it was my fault. On October 12th, well, that was a day to remember. My former dog Toby destroyed my time machine. So again, we repaired it about a month before, and then he destroyed it. I woke up really early. I hung out with my friend Aaron, and he cheered me up, and we had a pretty good day. I think it happened for a reason. You remember the ending scene of Back to the Future 5? Not the very ending scene, but after I get into present time, and I discover I have a sister, but I don't know she's my sister, so I hit on her.
Hey, how you doing?
You gross, Parker. What's wrong with you? That's no way to talk to your sister.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I filmed that with my friend Kaylee on October 19th, and also with my parents and my grandma. That scene towards the end of the movie is when I filmed that on that date. On October 21st, I released the official fall movie trailer that it was set to drop on January 10th. October 26th, I filmed the rest of the fight scene. I told you that we didn't have much time to film the first part of it, and so the second part of it was when we were in the driveway and we fought, and I dragged you to a garbage can.
Back in there, and then
No, you pull it from the bottom.
pull from the oh yeah, but that, see, now that's yeah, and then we do this, then I can't even imagine how Victor feels right now.
No, hold on, actually, don't put me down.
And again, that was October 26th versus when we filmed on August 7th for the first part of that scene. And it all of a sudden switched from summer weather to all of a sudden fall weather. In a split second, you could tell it was a completely different season. And I didn't like that, but we tried the best that we could. I remember my mom and I think even some of my friends like Johnny and Raul and Victor sweeping leaves because they've fallen because it's fall out of the cul-de-sac, but there were still some that made it into that specific scene because they were stuck. I mean, I think it recently rained, so they were just, it was kind of damp. At the time, I was like, oh, that sucks, but at least we got it done. That specific scene at that time was improv, so I didn't exactly know what I was doing when I was fighting him. On November 8th, I released my intro remake of the TV show Friends using the same font as they do in the introduction and the theme song that they used into a 45-second clip that introduced the cast of Back to the Future 5, and at the end it said coming January. On November 16th, finally my dad and I rebuilt the time machine, and it turned out to be a blessing that my former dog Toby ripped it up and destroyed it, because we made it into something way better than we couldn't have done if it wasn't for that incident. The same thing we used was my Kindle tablet and blue backpack, but everything else was completely redesigned, new material that worked a lot better in the end. That same day, I filmed the futuristic scene. Original script I had was a few months ahead of present time. In 2019 was going to be the futuristic scene.
What's that? Sounds like somebody opened the garage door. That's strange. My whole family's out of town for the weekend.
My future self heard a sound coming from the garage because present Parker ran out of gas for his dirt bike. So then future Parker grabbed a gun, attempted to shoot his older self, and then once his older self turned around, present Parker was like, I wouldn't do that if I were you, and then future Parker just fainted. That's not exactly how a paradox works, and that's why I completely discarded that scene because it made no sense, but that could be found on my deleted scenes. On November 29th, I finally filmed my first round of the time travel sequence. Better than Back to the Future 4 was, but it still wasn't like the big product that I wanted, because even though that was practical on the fire trail and used gunpowder, we laid it on the floor, lit it, everything else was completely special effects. By November 30th, filmed Parker and Rodney's confronting scene. Finally, no mic issues, which is great. The only downside, it was 35 degrees. We were filming at literally 9 in the morning at the end of November. And obviously it looked like winter because it basically was, which at the time I was like, oh, it's fine. All the scenes I've been filming the past 2 weeks anyway have looked like winter, so it's fine. But I just kind of went with it, but at least the microphone issue got solved.
I love you, and I always wanted the best for you.
I love you too.
Look at those clouds.
Is it
I
a
see
bunny?
shapes.
Is it a bunny?
I see a bear.
Oh, it's on a Tommy?
Maybe.
What's wrong?
I love looking at clouds.
In the month of December 2019, we tried to film the 2004 scenes, which is the main premise of the movie, Parker going back in time to prevent parents from splitting up. But we had too many things to do. By January 4th, I actually announced my first official pushback on the release date to the 31st of January. And by January 22nd, I was like, okay, no, let's push it back more. I announced that it would drop now on March 20th. And that was probably a really bad time. And that's why I pushed it back, because I wanted to film. But I got more migraines. I was in the middle of finals week. I could not go to school because of my migraines and my anxiety and all my health issues that I had. It was really bad. And ironically, it's funny, I said that, oh, I'm working on finals, so that's why I'm postponing the movie, which was true but then a week later I actually transferred out of a public in-person high school into an online charter school because I could not do the in-person, which was sad. I hated not being with my friends, but it helped my health so much, and I'm so much happier now. So I'm so thankful for the opportunity that I had to do that, because I am happy to report I am so much better now. The same announcement that I made in January, I also told people that I will be having a live watch party event where people in my area could come and watch it with me and the rest of the cast. And really nothing happened for the next month. I actually came down with a pretty bad cold, which I'll get to more in just a second, but I managed to film only one scene within that month on February 22nd. It was one of the 2004 scenes in Rodney's car. He was like, "What are you doing in here?" And Parker was like, "Well, I'm a time traveler. Listen to me. If you don't make this decision, then our family will be split apart." He's like, "Oh, whatever." And then he just ran off. But a fun fact about that was filmed in my mom's friend Phaedra, her pre-2004 van, which we were going to use to film the rest of the 2004 scenes. But we had no time to do that day. We got a late start. That was later replaced with my mom's friend Melissa's pre-2004 car, because when we were ready to film the rest of the 2004 scenes over the summer, Phaedra was not available. But that cold got significantly worse over the next week, and by March 5th, I announced that the release date for the movie would be pushed back to April 24th due to COVID. There are upticks in my area, and that's nothing compared to what the rest of the world has to go through, or what you could be still going through, no matter if it's you or your loved ones lost their life. Prayers go out to you. But by March 17th, I canceled the watch party, because a few days before, it was officially a global pandemic, and I had to cancel it because I was like, no way this is gonna happen in person. So I was like, I'm still hoping to have it out on the 24th, but it just won't be in person. On March 28th, COVID worsens even more, so I released an update video on YouTube basically saying the last chance to make the April 24th release date work is if I filmed this specific scene, which was the 2004 scenes, on April 4th. If I did that, make it so it comes out on the 24th, but if I can't make that work, then it would have to be delayed. On April 4th, I officially announced, okay, yep, we couldn't film it. At this time, we were separated. COVID was awful, so my dad could not come home. He worked at a hospital, but it's the way that things are. So I was like, okay, it's coming out this summer. That's what I said on April 4th. And luckily it did, because I uploaded privately to YouTube what we had so far so I could show my dad online, so he could kind of see what we can improve on over the summer and kind of what we need to do next. And the fight scene music with Victor and I was copyrighted, even though I picked a specific non-copyright song, and either the source that I got it from lied or it became copyrighted after the fact. But since I uploaded to YouTube privately, it gave me a copyright claim, and I was like, great, can't use that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to have to refilm that over the summer too. I didn't put any news out to the public for months, but that doesn't mean nothing was happening. Even though we couldn't film, there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. With my mom and I stuck at our place at the west end of the state, and my dad stuck on the east side of the state due to COVID, we collaborated online to rewrite scripts that we thought we could improve by looking what we did before COVID, and we're like, once this gets better, we can make this movie way better. And that's exactly what we did. And yeah, there's a lot of bad times during the pandemic for everybody, but one positive thing that helped me during the pandemic is get closer to God. I was in a really bad place for the first half of filming this movie, and the pandemic and being in quarantine got me more happy and less depressed, and got me so more motivated to do this, and it changed my life for the better. And I'm so happy that that came out of a bad situation. I hate to tell you this, but for the first half of filming Back to the Future 5, I was very bossy and rude at times. I wasn't trying to be. Sure, you didn't see that on camera, or if you were at my school, but it was really bad filming the first half. And no wonder the quality wasn't as good as the second half of filming Back to the Future 5, because I was just not in a good place mentally. But I am just so blessed what God has done to my life and what my family has supported me through. And it's just amazing how something bad turned into something better. July 4th was my first time on set since February. I was so excited.
All right.
So no, okay, whisper.
Whisper?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, oh no.
So I'm whispering.
Okay, that's not.
I'm looking at cloud formation.
No, like this. Guys, do that. Guys, do that. All right,
Who am I?
So, yeah, what we're gonna do with this, it needs to be shorter, right?
Am I still dead?
Oh, God.
Testing? 1, 2, 3.
God. Come closer.
All right. I'm coming.
Okay, so we're wondering what we're doing here.
All right.
We ended up refilming the part where I discover my dad dead on the ground, and I time travel back in time a few days to prevent him from getting shot. Ernest, who played the villain, was still the same scenes we filmed September 1st, the year before, but all the other scenes of me and my dad were filmed that day on July 4th, and my most favorite part of that was the time travel sequence. We combined the gunpowder we had before, but then my dad got this cool new explosive gunpowder that made this entire cool time travel portal come to life, and combined that with flashing lights, fireworks, and smoke bombs, and boom, it was an amazing time travel effect. It was our personal, very own effect, although it looked as good as what they did in the original Back to the Future, and I am so happy that it came out like that. All of it was practical. None of that wide shot was done in post-production. It was all done realistically in the moment. The only thing I did was sped it up and put it together. It was amazing. And the next day on July 5th, it was the final cut of the confrontation scene between Rodney and Parker, and obviously that was better because our lines were more put together and it didn't look like winter. So it was just an average summer day. On July 18th is when we attempted to refilm the future part of the aspect. We're like, wow, this is an incredible year, not necessarily positively, but we're like, we need to include this in the movie. We couldn't have done that if we would have released it before COVID. So we're like, okay, we take this really bad 2019 scene out that I mentioned earlier, put it in the 2020 scene, and boom, we got that. My dad has to tell me what's going on. It's like, oh, you time traveled accidentally. It's because I lost my phone in the different timeline, and how am I going to get back? He gives me a solution. He tells me what's going on and prepares me for the future. The next day, on July 19th, we finished all those scenes inside, and it looked amazing. And some bad news on July 22nd, I was in the car with my mom, and the final scene with Kaylee, me, my parents, and my grandma got deleted because my SD card got corrupted. Was really sad. I legit started crying, and I'm like, I can't deal with this. And then my mom and I were just praying and put on Christian music, and it helped me just settle down. But I was like, we have to refilm it within the next month, obviously. But I'm going to put that aside right now. What's most important is doing what we can right now. So on July 24th and 25th, we filmed all the 2004 scenes that we had to in the past. And that was really fun to pretend it was 2004 and move things around the set and make it seem like 2004. That was so fun to do. And fiddle around with different days during that week I was there in the movie with the weather conditions. It was really fun to figure all that out. It was cool doing another one of those practical effects from a different point of view, but we used the same process. That was all practical, no special effects in that time travel sequence. Going back to what I think is 2019, but it ended up being 2020. July 26th, I released my final Back to the Future summer movie trailer that said it was going to come out August 28th. On the final day of July, I coordinated with Kaylee to refilm that scene that got corrupted on August 15th, but sadly, my grandma could not be in it due to COVID because we didn't want to risk anything with her, but luckily Kaylee's family was doing good. My parents and I were doing good. So we just had to figure out a way to incorporate my grandma in the ending scene with her not actually being there in person. But change of plans by August 7th, the only way we could actually make that work during that weekend was if my dad came back to refilm. He couldn't. He was stuck at his job, and we just bought a house, and he was busy working on that. And the only logical thing that I thought of was, oh my gosh, I still have that scene on YouTube. It was private on my account. There was no way to download it, so that's why I didn't think about it before. But I could screen record it. Sure, it did reduce the quality, but I made it work by screen recording, and at least we didn't have to replace my grandma in that final scene. So it was really good. And by August 10th, we actually ended up filming the final cut of the entire fight scene with me and Victor. The only thing that we had left from the year before was when Victor was first coming up behind me and pointed a gun at me. That was done in August 2019, and in August 2020 was when the rest of the scene was done, but it went pretty well together. And the reason why we left that in there, that first little part, rather than filming it, is because, yes, we did buy this new house over on the completely east side of the state, but within this, like 6 months in the past, we've moved from our house in the same town to an apartment 10 minutes on the other side of the freeway. So in order to do this, we had to go back to our old house and fight in the cul-de-sac. But new people lived at our old house. So then we got permission from our neighbors to film that scene of me and Victor doing our first initial thing in their driveway, with keeping some scenes of our old driveway the year before. So if you look closely, we're not in the same driveway, but we filmed it just in a way to make it look like it was. But that was really great to do all that then, and my dad taught me fighting moves for that specific scene, so there's no improv. It looks so great. On August 23rd, we filmed with Jenny and Kaya, who owns the farmhouse, and where we filmed a lot of our scenes for Back to the Future 4 and 5. If it wasn't for them, the entire production series wouldn't have been what it is now, so huge props to them. And we wanted to do something cool for them since they helped us out so much. We included them in the movie. They played the couple who lived at the farmhouse in 2020, where Rodney no longer lives, although Parker didn't know that. He didn't know he time traveled into a different timeline. So things started to get weird in the farmhouse after he thought he was just going in there to eat and interact with his parents, and these random people started getting angry at him, and the guy followed him out with a gun as Parker bolted out of there and eventually discovered what was actually going on. On August 25th, I filmed my final scene of the production.
Well, that was quite a journey, but I'm finally where I want to be. I'm back where I belong, at home. Thanks for everything.
Spent all day the 26th editing, and then completely came to a wrap on the 27th as I finished editing and pressed that export button on YouTube. I finished exporting Friday, August 28th at 4 a.m. privately, and then released to the public live at 4 p.m. that afternoon. And a lot of people are wondering Back to the Future 6. I'm not planning that in the moment unless there's a demand for it. And in terms of regular productions, I'll be taking about a year off for doing anything this big, as I want to focus on weather forecasting, and I want to get back to uploading videos every Saturday at 4 p.m. Pacific here on my main channel, since I wasn't able to balance that when I took on big projects like Back to the Future. If you guys enjoyed this behind the scenes look at Back to the Future 5, be sure to leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and see you guys next Saturday. Peace out.